Hey everybody, welcome to Field of Dreams on ACTN. I'm Steve David, I'm your host. Today I want to talk about, get back to our women's national football team. And I want to concentrate a little bit more on the coaching staff. And, let me introduce Jefferson George. Welcome to Sir Jefferson.
Thanks, Steve. Pleasure to be here as always.
All right. So, and we're missing Clarky, but we will deal with this today. I want us to talk about the women's national football team and the coaching staff, the whole management group for the women's national football team. And also, I've got to tell you this. When I started to do this show, my whole intention was to educate the viewers, give them the history about Trinidad football and a start back, and I wanted to get them to know, because we never had our history really exposed to the viewers. So I wanted them to know what some of the players and what we've done, and educate the public a little bit into seeing when things are going wrong so they can put pressure on them to correct it. And that was my whole idea. Now when I see things going wrong, I try to let my viewers be knowledgeable on what I'm seeing going wrong, and then they can put some pressure on making this corrected. Yeah. Because we had our whole football federation, that's what they used to call it, or association, they used to call it football, they changed it to football federation. We had it hijacked, right? And so I don't want that to happen again. And I don't want also things to get out of hand, like what I'm seeing now with our national women's football team, our coaching staff. Our coaching staff is totally foreign. Yeah. Everything, and in addition to foreign, there's a lot more than that, and something is not right. True. In this position, what I'm seeing. So let's talk about it. Let's let the viewers know what's going on. And I've seen it on social media and everything else, and people commenting and stuff. Lots of people know about it, but I want them to understand they don't sit back and let these things happen. We cannot afford for that. And right now, our women's football team is like non-existent. And if we continue the way we're going, we're going to really get way too far behind them. So I know you must have known a little bit about the coaching staff, so let's discuss that. And what do you think is the reason for all this happening?
All right. Well, Steve, let's start with the reason, I think, and just to give a little context to it, and even for our viewers, so that this show is going to be critical because of where we are in terms of our women football, right? Football in general. But I think what we must always keep in mind as we go through discussing the staff, the people who have been selected to lead this women's senior program, they didn't appoint themselves, right? So again, there we find one of the major issues affecting football. How did this staff come to be? And that's one of the things I think, as the show progresses, that I want us to go into, because it gets people to understand that there is supposed to be a process that brings to us the staff to manage any team. They don't pick themselves. And the where that come from will tell us an idea as to what the plan is. Because when you pick a staff to lead a team, there must be a broader objective behind that, right? So if it is that I need to construct, if we use the analogy of building something, right, which is the football program, and I need, what I want to build is a concrete structure, right? I would need a mason. I would need somebody who could lay foundation. I would need somebody who could, do plastering, that type of thing. So if in that scenario you come in and you bring, a joiner, we realize you have problems. And that is what we're seeing here. So this seems to come from the persons who are selecting them. One, probably not having a clear plan, or not having the proper expertise to bring to us persons who are going to deliver a good outcome or a good product. And that brings us to the staff itself. Now, sometime in January or February there, they began looking for somebody to lead the program. And
who is they, though?
The Normalization Committee, right?
Okay.
And the TTFA. Now, starting a process to select a women's coach. Now, they would have sent out applications for persons to apply for the job. They got 100 and the number was called almost 200 applicants, and they would have gone through a process of vetting these persons who applied for the job. Obviously, there were many local persons applying for it, but some foreign applicants as well. The person who initially got the nod as the best candidate subsequently could not take the job for whatever reason. And from what we understand, that the person who is now the head coach, James Thomas, he was an assistant to the person who was supposed to lead the program.
Okay, wait, hold on a second. I need to understand this real good. So when the Normalization Committee came in, and we had a head coach for the men's team with a whole group of assistants and different thing, and we also, the woman was part of that. So they fired everybody except Fenwick from the men's perspective, on the men's side.
Fenwick was already.
Fenwick stayed. They kept Fenwick, and then he got fired later. But I mean, he kept doing the national program with the men's team.
No, the national staff for the men under the Normalization Committee stayed in place. Nobody was removed initially. Remember, they went through that whole campaign with the staff in place.
The under 15, the under 18,
Right. So what I'm saying, but Fenwick and his staff, so that's what you mean. All the other teams, but they didn't have football to play.
Right.
Right. So it wasn't a matter that they were dissolved, but there was no competition for them.
So the women had a coach as well, right? The boy from police.
Right. And he took charge in the under-20 tournament last year.
Right.
But his senior team, who he would have normally been part of that team as well.
Right.
They didn't have a program because they didn't have a competition coming up.
Okay, so he was head of the women's team. Who removed him?
No, well, remember he was in the head of the under-20, but the senior staff, they didn't pick a staff for them because they had no competition in that year.
Or the women never had a staff?
No, the women didn't have a staff.
Okay, so now I understand. So I'm on track with you now. So now that was totally vacant?
Yes, that was vacant.
So now they fill it, and the Normalization Committee fills this to go forward. So, okay, go ahead.
Right, so that was the process. So we've gotten to the point where they selected Mr. Thomas, right?
Thomas is...
he's the head coach of the women's program
he's
right
local
now.
Or he's foreign?
He is foreign.
Okay.
Right? He's a European-based, right? Citizen of one of the European countries. So he came in and was having discussions, and again, that was the initial one was to put him with Mr. Hood, Donald Maskell, right, and create a local, bunch,
mixture,
with him as the head coach. And for me, I think that's a solid plan because you have persons, Hood, who is very qualified, he also had, and again I said, a very good record, even as late as last year, with the under-20s, finishing in our highest position.
And he knows the
in world.
players too.
Of course, he knows the players.
Right.
All right. He had an assistant, Daniel Maskell, a young, upcoming coach as well, very bright prospect. Now, the process by which they selected Hood and Maskell to join with the senior coach, Mr. Thomas, was something that was challenged, right? One, by the Wolf executive. Secondly, by the Coaches Association, right? Those were voiced publicly. Now, they ended up removing Hood and Maskell, withdrawing their appointments, and they sent back out for persons to apply for the positions of manager, goalkeeper coach, assistant coach, and so on.
Right.
So that process took place. What we know is that Mr. Thomas, who is the head coach of the program, Ms. Janelle James, Dion Lafourcade, right, and Mr. Chinapu, we created some sort of committee by which they were screening the applicants to fill the vacant positions.
So that is ad hoc. Then that is just,
yes, ad hoc. It's ad hoc. It's not a committee. Yeah. They just came together for this purpose.
Right.
Now, this is the group who is responsible for bringing this staff into being. Right. So that is the background behind how this crew. Yeah.
All right. So I got James Thomas is the head coach.
Yeah.
Charlie Mitchell.
Charlie Mitchell, right.
He's assistant?
Assistant.
And he's foreign as well?
Yes.
So that means James brought him, or?
Yeah, but James would have brought him. James would have brought him
in.
All right, again, through the same type of
connection.
Process. Yeah.
All right, so to speak. Not W connection.
Yeah.
Connection. All right. And the goalkeeper coach is James Baird?
James Baird. Yeah.
Right? And he's local here, but...
He's Scottish. Yeah, but
he's from
he
Scotland.
lives here.
I think I know him. And then Joanne is the manager?
Daniel. Yeah.
Joanne Daniel?
Yeah, manager.
And all these is foreigners.
Yeah, well, again, Joan Daniel, she is naturalized by marriage. She is married here, and she also lives here.
And I hate to say this, and they're all white foreigners.
Yeah, all, and that was one of the things that, now for us, and again, getting the context right. That's why it's important to have a process by which any staff come, to be. If that process is open, if it's fair, if it's transparent, regardless of who we end up with,
right,
you are always going to have persons who say, we should have this one instead of that one. But then the process itself protects, protects it from any kind of, because legitimately, you would be able to say, look, this is what the process we used. These were the criteria for selection, and these were the best persons that fit the position. This process, you cannot say that.
So I want to say that, who are the people who picked these people? It has to be, I think I heard Janelle James.
Right, Janelle James,
name,
the director.
And then Lafourcade name was in there.
The technical director.
And who's the other two?
The head coach.
The head coach was...
The head coach was part of it.
He was part of that?
Yeah, he was part of it.
Which I don't mind a head coach being part of selecting his staff.
Of course.
And then there was one more.
Chinapu.
Yeah, Chinapu.
Yeah, I don't know
who is
how he
outside.
Comes out. Yeah. So when you look at these persons, again, now if we are to look at the process, what qualifies them to select coaches who they aren't familiar with, right? Now, again, if it is a situation where you're going into a job as an accountant, you have your resume, you have your experience of work, that type of thing. He has applied for the position of, and let's start with the head coach. He applied for the position of head coach of a national senior team. He's never been in that position, right? So then what was the criteria? And that's what I'm saying. What do you want to get? What do you expect to get from him when he does not have the experience? Now, it would have made sense initially, as I said, if you're pairing him with somebody like Richard Hood, right? And I know he has some specific expertise. He's a football analyst, right? Which is a important position in today's football, but
He means
not a head
James
coach.
Thomas?
James Thomas.
Yeah.
Right? Not as a head coach, right? That's somebody who works along with a head coach to provide, some insight into the game in terms of statistics and stuff like that.
So as far as we know, James haven't coached anybody.
Not a head coach. He's never been
as a head coach,
Yeah.
and especially international,
No.
on an international standpoint. Clubs,
No, but the club record, I can't speak to, all right? But again, he's been in the national program for them, and that is the job that he is now occupying for us at our highest level.
okay. And I know Lasana on his 868 has some, I saw some of the stuff that he wrote. Now, what is James' connection with, how did his name just follow the sky?
Well, and that's an interesting thing that we could go, a little deeper into, because, again, as I said, if he was supposed to be an assistant, he was, promoted to the head coach position when, the first choice probably had something better to do.
So, well, who's the first choice?
Who was it? It was
You mean
a woman.
Hood?
No. Initially, the first from the initial set of applicants that they got, the 100 and something applicants that they got first.
Right. They had another first choice.
They had somebody.
And we don't know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know the details of that. Yeah,
and who screened that? Was it?
Was the, it would have been Dion Lafocade and Janelle James.
But we have a committee, though. This who does this?
We don't.
Well, we used
We
to.
should.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we should.
So the first thing that we should have in place is that committee.
Correct. And that's why I started
do the
where I
screening.
did. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and that committee is not in place. So obviously this is done through the normalization committee in some back room or something, wherever. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that is what we would.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we will pick up where we left off. Viewers, we'll be right back after this short break.
What you mentioned, that the lack of a proper process is not something new, right? That's something we're supposed to strive for. But at least before, you had football people making these decisions so that the person selected as a coach was a logical choice. You might disagree, you might not like that person, you might choose somebody else.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. Okay, Jeff. So we got a head coach, James Thomas, who came in because somebody selected him to be our new head coach. Now we have an assistant coach called Charlie Mitchell.
Right.
Where did he come from?
Yeah, well, that's somebody who was selected by the committee, which includes the head coach. So obviously he was the coach, the head coach, would have seemed to be one who was more than likely guiding this process again, which is something that you really don't have a big problem with. But then the person that he comes up with, when you start to evaluate them, it shows clearly some things are lacking. And again, if he was going with that, you have somebody who, again, doesn't have much to offer in terms of senior women's coaching, right? Being assistants, being same along the lines of an analyst type. That's where most of his experience is. So the question there is this a program that has, been put together to analyze our women's team, or to coach them, All right. So those are the things that it is quite unclear in terms of what the plan is and how we're going to move women's football from where it is now to where it's supposed to be. Obviously, lacking in that staff as well is knowledge of the players. Right now, we don't have probably just Yaya and a couple of others playing outside in competitive teams. So the most of the women you will be selecting is women who need a lot of work. Basically, they are playing on the senior team, but they still have a huge amount of room for development. So that's what you're going to have to come in to really sort of do. Knowing them, one, the ability to do scouting, because the team is already in training, all right, and the viewers should know that they're already in training. I think it's the third or possibly the fourth week. And so who selected the players, right, for the coach to have if there is no knowledge of the players, prior to that?
Okay, so let's get into that. First, James Thomas, he was part of a group, which is who? Which is
Diana Fakad,
Janelle James. And those are the ones who select the assistant coach.
Yes.
Well, on social media, I read that
No, but
James,
clearly, and as I'm saying, and that's why I started where I did. Now, if you look at, we have the technical director who should play some role. It seems normal, but then again, his experience, right, and his base of expertise is not in evaluating coaches. Right? You have nobody, they selected a goalkeeper coach. There's nobody in that panel who could evaluate a goalkeeper coach. So how did they come up with that, right? The head coach there, again, and everybody's going to fall on their own sword at the end of the day, right? My issue with it is if the head coach made those decisions, then just say so. Said the coach wanted these persons, right? And we said, okay.
Sounds like that.
Right?
Yeah.
But as I'm saying, so if it is that, because everybody has been, backing away from it, Diana Fakad, he's like, well, he was part of it, but he doesn't know the person's resume, the assistant coach. He was part of the committee, but not knowing the resume. So what was the process like? And that's what I'm saying. It comes across as being a sham process, right, to put it nicely, because what really was supposed to be done, so then there was no need really for that committee. The committee was there to rubber stamp something that was already going to be, That's how it seems to me, at least.
But in our constitution or our formation, let's say, as to how we select that standard, and they didn't follow that process then.
Right, and again, if we go back to where we started, to not to put too much weight on this administration, but the expertise to select a proper staff is lacking. They don't have that skill set within the people who are selecting the coaches. You have Chinapu, who for all we know is not even here. So what is the metrics? What are they using to say, okay, we'll go with this one as opposed to this one? What are those criteria and so on, right?
So,
now, one of those criteria that at least was set in writing was that the persons who they selected are supposed to be, working in women's football for at least 5 years. So these guys missed that, right? At least the goalkeeper coach for one, right? He misses that, right? So the lack, what you mentioned there, the lack of a proper process is not something new, right? That's something we're supposed to strive for. But at least before, you had football people making these decisions so that the person selected as a coach was a logical choice. You might disagree, you might not like that person, you might choose somebody else over him, which is fine, because people are, you have your own views. But when you look at this staff, you know, one of the questions you will jump out at you is that what they're trying to do, and that is what we cannot come up with by looking at this staff, because you're not seeing the parts there to move us forward.
This sounds like emergency mode. Does the women have some tournament coming up real soon?
They are supposed to have, qualifications starting in November, I believe.
So the excuse could be, we in an emergency mode, this needs to happen.
Well,
So we have to get something selected. So we don't have a committee, we form a quick committee to
well,
do this.
that has been used, and again, I don't want to use emergency because when this process started, it's not an emergency. Come on, we have a team to prepare for November. They had all the time. The process took about 2 months. The initial interviews and stuff was done in June.
Okay.
Right? That's more than enough time.
So long
yeah,
time
that's
going on.
more than enough time. So that excuse that, because it's being used though, because why do we not have a proper technical committee? That we are in football, we are playing football, we have teams to prepare, you have staff to put in place, but you don't have a technical committee. All right? Now, that is not going to serve us well when these girls take the field, right? Or women in this case. And that, for me, sets us back again, right? So the questions that we continue to ask have not been sufficiently answered.
Right. So if we don't have the right people, how can we prepare our team to do well? We just throwing people out there. I even heard there was people coming out of retirement and to join this team.
Yeah, but and again, you would expect that. You would expect with the women's program, you know, being done for quite some time, the senior program, it would work sort of automatic, because the persons who were on the last team, some of them who are past their prime, they would automatically be the ones that they're looking at. Because if the head coach would have gone to a tape
Right.
to look at people and he said, okay, well, who is this one? Who's that one? You're talking about people who stopped playing, you know? So,
Yeah.
again, that is, it's strange. Yeah.
So who are the people who are training now?
The
how
full
did they
squad,
get-
right? The full squad, because we still do have some women who are active and who, you know, can contribute. One of those who we talk about coming out of retirement, Mealy came out of retirement, right? So she's trying her hand again, right? She was the manager, by the way, in the tournament
For the
that was
women?
played here last year, right? So she has made the decision to come out of retirement, out of management, because she was heading in that direction, to go back onto the field. If this would mean that she is now going to be some sort of a player manager / thing, you can see something like that happening, because again, there's a vacuum there for actual knowing who it is, right? Mary is an influential character as well, so maybe something like that is taking place in terms of the persons who actually create this training pool, right? Now, how well that will work, again, we'd have to wait and see how that works.
Yeah, because maybe that's where they're getting the players from.
Again, we
from
can
something like that.
assume that is one of the logical ways that it's coming out. But again, Mealy's a player. Mealy's been a manager. What's her qualification to bring people into the team? You know,
So she
as a
might be
player?
calling around and saying, "Hey, we looking for people."
Again, you
Can you come
can
back? Yeah,
assume,
come and play.
that's fair to assume.
Because
You know,
look at
with her
these
coming
people,
out of retirement.
James and Charlie and James Weird. They don't know our players.
No.
So how are they getting people to come out? And they don't have phone numbers, or maybe they can get phone numbers
Yeah.
and call people out. But
Yeah,
that's
so,
not
so
a
you
proper
have
selection.
a situation where initially when Hood and Maskell were selected, Janelle James, she took responsibility for putting that staff together. Right now, again, she's one who has been closer to the process in terms of local women's football. she would have been with her role as director of women's football. She is, at least knows about the players and so on. So again, she may be, doubling as a kind of coach type scout for players or something like that.
Janelle would have the experience, and Janelle will know the players.
Yeah.
And then what about the second vice president from the United administration? What's her name? She was with Wolf.
Susan, what's her name? Warwick? Yeah.
She would know. Is she involved as well? She would know some of the players?
I haven't heard her mention. I don't know if she's involved at a lower level, but
right.
Yeah.
So who else is involved that we know?
No, but the names that we have called there, those are the people that we know are involved, right? And the thing about it, for the viewers to get some context, it's not difficult in Trinidad to get a player's number or a parent number, that type of thing. There are, a database of the girls who would have been on the last under-20 team. Maybe some of those girls have moved forward. So for me, it's possible to get the players there, but the thing about it is you have a pool that has been stagnant. These girls have not been playing, and that's my thing. You would more than likely be denying some other girl who has not been in the pool from making her way into it. And again, if you deny that individual, of course you're denying the group and the country. But those are the type of things that you really would hope somebody is trying to put their finger on and trying to resolve, because that is how the dynamics of local football is. That is why it's important, again, as I said, to have somebody who had a little more knowledge of this, because somebody who's coming out from an environment where football is structured, the job of a national head coach is more of going and looking at games, scouting players. That is not how our system works,
So, well, the normalization committee came in and they got rid of the administration, the United administration. And they were supposed to set up and make sure football is done properly. They kick them out and say, all right, we're going to take over. But apparently, they're not doing nothing. They really didn't take over.
Yeah,
or set up a system.
That is the important thing, because they come in, and if it is that we are to revitalize football itself, those structures, your committees, right, and so on, your standing committees, which are supposed to be in operation, because that is how the football is run, through these committees, not by really the president or your general secretary. They would approve the things that is really done and carried out by the experts who form these committees to bring football into what we see on the field,
Let me play devil's advocate then. If they're saying, maybe they're saying, when we leave, there's going to be a voting process for the next administration. So we don't want to put too much in, but in any case, they had to put some emergency committee or emergency group until that time comes that we don't have right now.
Yeah, because if you're going to pause, if no football was being played, I would understand. You're just doing the administrative function. Making sure that the staff who is in the office gets paid, and you're paying debts to the persons who creditors and so on. All right, because that's part of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But if football is being run, we just came back from the Gold Cup. You have the women's team, as I said, starting in November. You have youth teams, footballers are going to start back shortly. Then the systems, right, your committees, which run and govern these things, have to be in place. You need to have that in place. That is not how FIFA themselves, by their own rules, operate. You must have standing committees. And at this moment, there are none. And again, the end product is having, staff that doesn't seem to fit what their assignment, right?
So, but
We would love to see.
people might be sitting there and saying, well, what can I do? I mean, how can I go about initiating some kind of protest or some kind of activity against what's going on? And maybe a lot of people at home saying, what can I do? And nobody knows exactly what to do. But pick up the phone and call FIFA, or pick up the phone and say to somebody, hey, you trying to kill our football?
Yeah.
Or you trying to help it? Or so and so. But I'm sitting here now and I'm like, what do we do? You get on the streets and you put placard FIFA and let it go worldwide and let FIFA see, well, nothing is happening here. Or do they know what's happening here?
Right. Well, that's the thing, they should, because that's the FIFA Normalization Committee, right? As far as we know, they're supposed to report into FIFA.
And the Normalization Committee probably just dragging their feet. And they probably don't know what they need to do either. Viewers, we'll be right back after the short break. Because if I am a good player and I've been trying to get on my national team, and I'm sitting back in Point Fortin, and I'm hearing practice going on with the national players that
you don't know about
I
it.
don't get a chance, and we don't develop, like, let's say 60 girls, bring them out, and then we cut the staff into half, the group into half at some point in time, and then we break it down to the full squad. Nothing like that. Okay, welcome back, viewers. So Jefferson, I mean, this has to affect people, a lot of people, especially the coaches who give their life to trying to develop our footballers. You have any information on how they feel about this?
Yeah. This whole staff and how it went about, because you did have a lot of local coaches who applied for the job, who was asked to apply for it, and then to be overlooked for persons who have less experience than yourself, they are demoralized. A lot of coaches who, and I've spoken to, they believe that what's the purpose of, working on your craft, trying to improve yourself as a coach, and even working within a national program for a length of time, and to not be given due consideration, right? Some of them weren't even called back after being interviewed, so they would have heard the team announced in the papers or on television and what have you, while they're waiting for a call to find out if they got the job. And that is not professional. That is, courtesy, just to call back and say, well, listen, we have a staff in place, maybe you need to do this, that, or the other. That feedback helps the coach know that he was considered and he had a fair chance at the job. When the job is given to somebody, and then you don't get that feedback, it leaves the impression, right, whether it be right or wrong, that they did not have a fair chance and something else was already set up and they were used as, as sort of a buffer to show that there was some system in place when really and truly there was nothing like that. And for the local coaches, it is difficult. The questions that they're asking themselves, what else do they need to do, right? And people need to understand that coaches take their time and their own resources to develop themselves just like any other profession. You go, you do your badges, you're sitting in seminars, you do your degrees and stuff like that in order to better serve the players so that you're given the opportunity to work in the national program. And when that is denied to you by, persons, and I'm making the point because I have no problems with local coaches working with foreign coaches. I have no problem with our national technical committee bringing in a foreign coach to work in our program. That's not the issue, because at the end of the day, you have an international process. If the TTFA or the Jamaican Football Federation or the US sends out, their need for coaches, anybody can apply. Now, we are in a situation where they say they don't have money, right? So one of the things you would expect from the selection is you not expect them going for your goose hittings, right? We're not going top-end coaches. You're not expecting to bring Mourinho across, right?
Right.
So one thing is that now, okay, if cost is one of the main factors, then my local coaches are thinking then, yeah, they pay us small money anyway, so I have a chance now.
Right.
So if you're not getting a chance now when you say you don't have money, and you still go to look for somebody who, again, is not a high-end coach, right? It's somebody who, when we think about it, you have, hundreds of clubs out in Europe there, and they didn't get any jobs out there, right? But you come here, you travel 5,000 miles to take, a job here. Really and truly, you would want to, those are things that coaches are looking at, right? And it's legitimate questions. How come, this person who couldn't land a job where he or she was, comes here and, takes a job from me? If you compare that to the Ministry of Education, if there are vacancies in schools or whatever, and the government decides that, all right, let's go to Panama or let's go to,
Cuba,
Cuba, and look for, that's going to be frowned upon. But in football, it seems like there's no issues with that. There's no consideration that let's see what we have here, how it fits in with what we want to do, right? And again, you can understand the feelings that coaches are going to have as it relates to that. If we look at the goalkeeper coach, right? Again, he has been here, right? He has been around. He played with Tobago United, all right, but has never coached significantly, has not been seen locally as a significant coach, has never coached at a national level, not even a youth level. And he's been given the opportunity to coach at a senior team above Trevor Nottingham, who is a former national player, Fonset, who's been the national senior team coach for times upon times, right? Worked creditably with all those young goalkeepers, right? Was recommended by the foreign coach, the Caroline Morris, who worked with our women's team for a short period under the John Williams administration. Ross Russell, we have, all right? You have, what's his name? Neverson, Nigel Neverson, right? And all these are persons who applied. I think Ross Russell applied. But when how you can select this individual? The only thing they have, is an accent. And I mean, for me, that's a legitimate question there. How that comes to be, it blows my mind. And can you imagine what happens to the coaches?
Well, yeah, they should be disappointed. Not coaches, players. Because if I am a good player and I've been trying to get on my national team, and I'm sitting back in Point Fortin, and I'm hearing practice going on with the national players that
you don't know about it.
I don't get a chance, and we don't develop like, let's say 60 girls, bring them out, and then we cut the staff into half, the group into half at some point in time, and then we break it down to the full squad. Nothing like that. It's like friend.
Yeah.
Or you have a friend who play football, or they tell them come along and practice.
Yeah,
That's one somewhere.
yeah, and again, it does not, um, shine a good light on the
On the
entire
national
program.
team.
When you look at how it started, again, the announcement was made 2 weeks ago, but the team was training 2 weeks before that.
Right.
How a team in a moment like this begins training almost as it were in secret. What is that is a national team, right? We need to have support, for these girls. We need to have, persons, giving good, vibe towards this whole team. But when it comes about like this, it's difficult for people to get behind the team because they want to know if it is something for them, if it is indeed a national team, because it does not reflect our nation.
So let's give the technical committee some solutions to the problems they're having or they're creating. And for example, I think the first thing they should do is really set up a technical committee to start the process and build a process under that, how we select a coach, how we select our players, what we need to do out in the communities, so that everybody get involved.
Yeah.
Because I know that definitely not happening in Point Fort.
Correct. Now, one of the things I think we clearly lack in, and I asked the question to somebody, because I was asked by someone else, and I never looked at it in this way, because if I was to ask you, Steve, who are the people within our football now that you know who will be able to evaluate coaches for your senior program? Who would those people be, right? And I don't know if you want to call some of them names, but when you begin to really try to do that, we don't have much of those people, right? We had Alvin Henderson, who was person in the program.
That's the only person came to my mind. Yeah.
We don't have them, right? Alvin Cornell, maybe, Mike Grayson, persons with experience. We'd really, if you look at those people who will maybe make up a proper technical committee. Keith Lucloy, you like him or hate him, but those are the people who will do the job, who know, one, the coaches, have the necessary expertise to evaluate a coach, because that is not something that anybody who's been in football could do.
Right.
Right? That's a position, a specific set of skills that you need
Strong-minded
to do that.
people.
Yes.
No
you,
yes
you
people.
need that. Right? And as you scan our local game and so on, that's why you have other persons coming in. Even with the appointment of in an interim committee with Angus Eve, right? You look at a committee that will do that, and if you are to really look at them, we don't have much of those people. So if that's the case, we need to begin looking at maybe Jamal Shabazz. Although he has engagement with another country at the moment, but these are the people who really and truly have that ability. Now, there are persons who have the ability, but they're not close to the process. If you have to select a coach for a national team, the CVs and the resume is one thing. Now, I think they're very big. This current committee is big on resume, so you may get selected on your resume, but resumes don't coach. We know that, right? And a large part of coaching, the resume might get you into the door, but what have you done? And that is what coaching is about, right? Coaching is not about, I did this license and I was here and I did. No. What have you done? That is what modern professional sport is about.
But like you say, I think we find that technical committee and who those people could be, I think we find something for the older group, like the Gary Cummins,
right.
Alvin Cornell, Alvin Henderson, to do.
Yeah.
They would sit down and they should be more logical in their mindset and be able to evaluate properly based on what they have done and the mistakes maybe they have made.
Right.
And they can make that a better thing.
You mentioned older folks, but again, we may have younger people who, and I know people who are doing, things like their director courses and things like that. And
Right.
again, within that, there are processes to follow in evaluating a coach. And a very small part of that, the point I was saying is doing the actual looking at a resume.
Look at it, right.
Because when you look at the group that are doing it now, it's more than likely that they're looking at a resume and saying this resume is good. Let's put this person to coach the team. There's a program that they have planned to implement, a mentorship program type thing. And I'm looking at the resume, what the team someone has done, and thinking to myself, how is this guy going to mentor Richard Hood or Marlon Charles, right? They should be mentoring him because they did things that he has never done in his life, right? And again, it doesn't mean that they don't bring value, right? Because obviously there are things that you would be able to learn from somebody who is younger or less experienced in a particular field, right? But if their experience and expertise is in, as I said, with this being an analyst, right? Gathering data, putting it back together and seeing how trends work and things. And that's big in football and professional sports now. But that's not coaching, right? That's not coaching. It's something that supports coaching and so on.
You know, and I always had issues with somebody looking at the resume and deciding whether this person is good enough to coach my national team. I don't. If I had my way, it wasn't going to be done that way.
Yeah.
It's going to be done. You send a resume so we can weed out the sheep from the goat.
Right.
But then I want, if I select 10 people, for the final breakdown, I want them to go into the situation, give them a situation. We sit down and we're looking at them, put on a clinic, or not a clinic, but give them a situation in a game, and see how they deal with it as a coach.
Right.
That's how I would think it should be evaluated. And then we can say, yeah,
correct.
this person has some
because
know-how.
it's a coaching is a practical thing. It is you can't tell me, well, and it happens in other fields as well. When you submit your resume to a company to be a CEO or to go into high management, they don't just say, oh, this person, he has the qualifications. They want to see what you did. What did you do? Right? What have you accomplished? Right? Where you were before? Where is that company now? That is the logical process of getting somebody into that type of a job and scenario. And I mean, as we close off, my encouragement to coaches, continue to work, right? And don't. It's difficult to not let situations like this, get you down and put you off track. But one of the things that always motivate me and help me in terms of my development was I was never preparing myself to be a Trinidad coach, right? I always saw myself standing, in front of the best players, and that requires me to be a particular way. And if you continue to work towards that, right, at the end of the day, the opportunity may not come here for you, right, but you'll be able to go anywhere and get that.
What I hate about our local situation is not what you know, is who you know. And not only here, but all over the world. But I don't like that. And there are people who is not frontish. I like to be upfront and on, who doesn't have that kind of personality, which you probably need, but they get left in the dust, and they could be really good.
True.
So I think it has to be judged on merit. And unless it's done on merit, then we behind the 8 ball. Right. Jefferson, thank you so much for the information, but appreciate you. Viewers, thank you for tuning in every Monday. And we do repeat on a Tuesday at 1 and a Saturday at 1. ACTN, thank you for the opportunity to bring the show to our viewers. And we have a Facebook page. You guys can check us out. And we have an email address, fieldofdreamtt@gmail.com, where you can drop us a line. This show has ended. Go in peace. My name is Steve David. Good night.